Call the committee of the whole meeting to order for Monday, February 2nd, 2026. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the committee of the whole meeting of Monday, February 2nd, 2026? Councillor Ray, Councillor Stetsky, all in favor, opposed, that's carried. Thank you very much. This morning, we have the good doctor with us here on the hot seat. Chris Settle, our Corporate Communications Officer, here to review the 2026 Corporate Communications Plan to get council's comments and input on the plan. Floor is yours. Mark?
So Mayor Price, just to introduce the item is we do a corporate plan every year, but generally council approves the plan. And we thought this year what we'd like to do is open it up for council input prior to finalizing the plan. And so a committee of the whole was the right avenue to have a hopefully robust discussion around what kind of communications council would like to see in the year going forward. So thank you. Dr. Z can introduce you.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, so thank you, Mayor Price, members of council. Are you able to get the up for me? Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so as CAO Furcho had mentioned, you know, this strategy usually comes to council for your approval, but we're adding another step this year. We'd like to get your input early, allow you to share your input and your comments. So if I may, before we kind of get into that discussion, I just have a few slides here I'd like to go through before we start. So really this strategy is about how the city communicates with the residents, businesses, staff, and partners. And the goal is really simple. We're always aiming for clearer, more accessible, two-way communication that helps people understand what the city is doing and most importantly, why. So this is a corporate-wide strategy. This is not just about social media or media releases. It really guides how we share information about city services and programs, our major projects, priorities, operational updates, and emergency and public safety information. And it is a living document. So we're reviewing it every single year as our needs change and the community's needs change as well. So why it matters, you know, people, generally speaking, want information that's timely, honest, and easy to understand. So what this strategy really focuses on is making information more accessible to everyone, explaining the reasoning behind city decisions, not just the decisions themselves. And strong communication really does build trust. It helps reduce confusion and it encourages meaningful public input. So some of the key goals the strategy is built around, these are sort of the 5 key goals. Stronger direct communication with residents, businesses, and staff. Inclusive and accessible messaging so information is understandable for everyone. Two-way communication, creating more opportunities for feedback and dialogue with the public. Proactive communication so that we lead the narrative instead of reacting to it. And transparency by sharing complete, accurate information in a timely way. This strategy is also designed to support city priorities. That includes mayor and council's priorities each year, the strategic plan, our corporate work plan, and departmental work right across all the different departments. The strategy also helps support, you know, community health, well-being, environmental initiatives, and partnerships with other levels of government. So some of the key challenges that we're addressing, you know, this strategy is really realistic about the challenges. You know, we understand there's limited budgets and resources. There's always the need for better internal staff communication. That's something we're always working on. And then keeping up with both the traditional media, the newspaper, radio, those types of things, and of course the digital platforms, which is ever evolving. A big focus is to make sure that information flows internally first, so that staff are informed before that information goes out to the public. So in draft at this point, this is kind of some of the action items that we've got identified for 2026. One is a carry forward from last year is exploring new non-traditional communications channels, getting out to where people are, looking at video, other digital platforms, you know, maybe some podcasts, those types of things, something we're still exploring. The next one is planning for a new city website structure and functionality, really focused on easier navigation and better use of tools like AI and virtual assistants. This project has already lightly gotten started. I have a consultant working with us now that's going through all of our analytics for the website usage over the last 5 years, and we're going to come up with a bit of a plan and see what's being used and not. So that will really help guide that discussion going forward. And then, of course, it's no secret, coming up in October is the municipal election. So there's a lot of public information sharing, and we're heavily involved in that as well. So just before I open the floor back to council, really this strategy is about clear communication, better engagement, stronger relationships, and really effective communication is everyone's responsibilities. It's council, it's staff, it's leadership. We're all involved and we're all responsible. And really when communication works well, it helps people stay informed, it keeps them involved, and help them feel confident in how the city is run and how it operates. So that's it for me right now. So I'd like to turn it back to council. Welcome any discussion, questions, input.
Yeah, thank you. Chris, you do an excellent job on getting council's decisions out to the public almost a minute or two after we make them, which is great. The area that I'm still confused about is incoming correspondence from the public. So when we get an email with questions, sometimes it comes to, or may come to one of us. Usually it comes to all of us, but I still have no idea who's going to be answering it. Sometimes I know the person, I know the issue, I'm happy to answer it, but I may or may not be reflecting the rest of council's views on that particular topic. Other times we've had people say, well, I sent it to all of council, but I've only heard back from 2 of them. And don't know which 2 those are and what was said by the 2 that did respond to that individual. So I'm wondering if where we're going with that whole aspect of it. Going back to when I worked with government, letter or correspondence, an email would come in. It would either come through my admin staff or through me. We would assign it to a staff person to draft the response, give them a time frame. We need an answer back within 2 days, 3 days, a week, whatever. And to me, and then would come back either for my signature or not. So I'm still kind of confused in terms of what we're doing there and how we might improve that process. And that would be either for you or for our CAO, I guess.
So Mayor Price through to Councillor Stetsky, I'd say, like a lot of people start with, that's an excellent question because it really is. And I agree. It's, the issue is, I think when you deal with single ministries kind of a thing, or single point person of a director or whatever in a department, it's easy. But when you have all of council and the email comes to all of council, how then is council to respond? And that's why we talk about going through the mayor, because if 2 council members respond, it reflects badly on those that don't. And if we have a go as the word of council comes through the mayor, I think that works. The issue I think we have is sort of that front end piece where the email comes in, and if it's an operational item versus and most are people typically, and I'll just say it's a sign of a healthy organization actually when people don't know I exist. People think mayor and council run the city, and to me that's good. That's the public face of the organization. And so to separate operational and political items, that's something we do internally, which is okay, but the emails will come to mayor and council, even if they're completely operational. So this is an area I think we need to do more work on. I've been really thinking a lot about the auto response and how that works and what we should say on there. But for now, the way we do have it structured is because there's 7 of you that the mayor speaks on behalf of council unless it's directed to an individual council member. I think to me, that works. But yeah, it's a great point, and to me, what we have now, it's not perfect. So the more conversation we can have, if we can design something better, let's do that.
So the other aspect to that is some sort of a time frame, initially a response. For example, some of the organizations I've been involved with, any email that came in got an automatic response saying, thank you. We have received your email and we will be getting back to you, as soon as possible or within a couple of business days or some kind of a response so that whoever sends it in knows that at least it got here as some kind of an automatic acknowledgement of things coming in. So again, I don't know whether we've looked at that aspect. And often it will say, we will, even if it says we're really, really busy, which is often very true, and we will get back to you hopefully within, 2 days or a week or whatever is reasonable in terms of a response, just so they know that we did get it.
I can speak a little bit to that, I think. When you look at the amount of emails or contacts that come in now, never in the past has it been like it has the last few years. Certainly, if you look at the various means of contacting City Hall, individual councilors, staff, I mean, there's multiple ways. In the past, maybe just an email, but I agree. But what I've noticed is probably maybe even as high as 99% of the issues we get, when you really break them down, they're probably operational. They want to make this operational problem that they're having and maybe not get a result, a political problem, right? So certainly Mark and I talk about those ones that are borderline. Anything that comes in that's sort of open to all council, I used to forward straight to Mark. Mark sees them now and he automatically gets hold of them. Oftentimes he'll respond and say that, it's an operational matter. He'll have staff check it. And I agree, there's maybe we need some way of getting back, but I know a lot of these issues, they're not going to get an answer within 24 or 48 hours. It's got to go down to staff. We've got to get the facts, and I think what this council, this administration, and our communications have done in the last number of years is we deal with facts. We don't blow anybody off. We don't give them a half, asked answer. We give them the facts, and I found that certainly Mark, when he responds, goes way beyond that. He gives them the facts, and any piece of correspondence or information related to that through a council meeting, through a bylaw, a policy, whatever, he's number of attachments. So they're getting great information. My experience with that now is probably 90% of those people he sends that information to don't read the information. They don't even open up the attachments quite often. But so it is a problem. I'm wondering maybe if we just couldn't have, a pre-written message that thank you for it goes out right away. Thank you for your correspondence. This is an operational issue. We'll have staff look into this and somebody get back to you within, I don't know, well, not even within a certain time, because it's, some of these things could take a week, to get the information, but the staff will be responding once they have adequate information. And that's not a bad idea. Certainly, it was about a year ago when I sent that one letter to one of the ministers, and we didn't even get acknowledgement that they'd received it. I mean, the government isn't even doing that at some level anymore. And Wayne, when you work for the government, boy, that was absolute, because everything was recorded and was responded to, even if somebody will get back to you later, right? So, I think if we almost had an automatic reply, thank you for your email, somebody, and then, I'd say somebody having to do that, but maybe an automatic reply on everything. We have received your email. Somebody will be in touch with you that this is an operational matter. We'll have the appropriate department or staff member get back to you.
One more thing, if it might, maybe it's two. Absolutely, Mark has been doing some excellent responses to some of those letters, very detailed, and explains the issue really well, and appreciate that, Mark, when you're doing that. I wonder if, just as counselors, we should commit to one another that if we do respond to one, that we do CC one another automatically, so that at least we know what each of us has been saying back to that individual. That might be helpful too.
Councilor Bissette.
The one thing we have to be cautious when we've run into trouble before, when individual counselors are responding, then we can get an assortment of responses, which doesn't reflect well on the organization. So I do, support the mayor's response and the CAO's response. I have noticed that some of those people that write back and say, only 2 counselors got back to me or whatever, they're angry and they haven't liked the answer they've received. And that's kind of part of our business. And I do notice that mostly they have received a response. It just wasn't what they wanted to hear. And being a teacher, I'm fairly used to that. But yeah, so that's something to keep in mind when we're seeing those responses. But I do think, having a central response is good, other than, yes, we've heard from you and that we'll discuss it. But we have run into trouble when we have individual counselors respond and then that's come back at us at times. And I mean, nothing's going to be perfect, but I do like the central response from the mayor on the CAO.
Just quickly on that point, if I could, about the individual counselors responding, I have no problem with this council at all. Everybody's got some experience and they do understand the governance role. They've been around the city long enough and they know the departments and they know the operations fairly well, so they can provide a pretty good answer. But this is policy going forward, so we could have brand new counselors almost across the board here next year. Can you imagine opening that up? And if you look what's happening, certainly down east, we've seen it in some communities in the west. Boy, those councils, and when if you pit one against the other, you could be really, really opening the door here for some real adversity. So that's just food for thought. Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to speak further to this issue, and then I'll maybe wait till we come around the table. I've got a few other points, but just to touch on this issue, I think we've kind of, I think we have a pretty functional process, but I think maybe the next step would be to have, and it does not need to be long, but a short policy and procedure to lay this out so it's clear. And I think an auto reply that says, thank you for your email. We will determine if this is an operational or a governance issue, and we will then respond accordingly, right? But yeah, that's what I would say. Let's have a little policy and procedure that outlines that the mayor and the CAO will determine if it's operational or governance. And yeah, we will then respond accordingly. And it's consistent with the role of the mayor as the spokesperson. And I think, as Councillor Blissett was alluding to, when it gets into kind of the will of council is collective. And so that's where I think streamlined response in terms of officially responding to webmails is probably the better route to go.
Councilor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. One issue I've seen with our, I think maybe the way the emails are set up on our website is that it seems like sometimes the public doesn't realize that if you send an email to council or maybe individual council members, it goes to every council member. So on occasion, you'll get like an email addressed to Councillor Stetsky that goes to everyone. And then they send another one to myself, and then they send another one to Councillor Blissett. And then we have 7 of identical emails in our inbox, which isn't a big deal, but I think it's also confusing for the public as well. So I don't know if there's a way to clarify that on the website, And then a second suggestion, and I don't know if this is possible, but would it be possible to add like a button to the email form as far as like, would you like a response? And if you do want a response, who would you like the response from? And it can either be, an individual council member, if it's addressed to an individual council member, the mayor, or the CAO, or just for general information. I don't know if that's a possibility, but if the public is, hoping to get an answer just from Councillor Ray, then they can just select Councillor Ray, and then Councillor Ray gets a notification like, hey, this is an email that I'm supposed to address, as opposed to all of council kind of confused what's going on. And then other point, like I do agree with Councillor Stetsky's comment about like if you do respond to an email, it seems like good practice to CC the rest of council just so we know what he said. I think the only thing I would add is maybe CC the CAO as well, just so we're all in the loop and there's no fires to put out later.
Any other issues, comments? Councillor Ray.
Thanks, Mayor. So I've got a few comments here, so feel free to cut me off whenever you like. So Chris, I was wondering, our e-newsletter after the council meeting, such a great source of information. Like if people are looking for a summary of what's going on, that's such an excellent resource. And I see that we now have a new e-newsletter as well that goes, I think, in the alternating weeks. So I just wondered if you wanted to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Ray. So, yeah, the post-council newsletter is something we've been doing the last few years and got some good traction. We've got about 3,000 subscribers to that. And what we've done is with this new one, Civic Wire Cranbrook, again, yes, designed to be on sort of the off week of council, touch more on operational things, upcoming classes, things through rec and culture, those types of things. And that was created in response to some of the feedback we got from the public on the last survey that we did, is that for the most part, people really like the e-newsletters and would like to get more information through that. So to kind of keep the information flowing, we built it in such a way that everyone's going to be getting an e-newsletter every week with all the latest info. So
That's awesome. And we, for sure want to make it as easy and as visible as possible for people to subscribe to those newsletters. So thanks very much for the great work on that. I think that's excellent. So just in terms of, like you referenced, two-way communication with the public. So maybe if you could touch on the ways that people can ask questions or provide feedback. And then maybe if you could touch on as well, our decision as a city to turn off Facebook comments, kind of our thinking behind that, but then also the communications you've had with other local governments who are also considering or have taken that same route of turning off Facebook comments. So just maybe a little bit of discussion about like those other ways that folks can engage with the city, and just a bit of the background on how we're approaching Facebook comments.
So Councillor Ray, with the Facebook comments, I'll touch on that first. We're still, I would say, sort of ahead of the curve in a lot of municipalities in turning it off. But certainly once we did, we've certainly got a lot of attention for it. I've talked to 6 or 7 different municipalities right across the country in the last year. Most recently was just northern BC. I've Terrace actually just last week. So people are very interested about it. And what's interesting is most of the municipalities I'm hearing from, it's their comm staff, which is one person like me, and it's just become this overwhelming beast to try to navigate that. So I think we're going to start seeing that happen more and more. So yeah, we're a little bit ahead of the curve there. And sorry, Councillor Ray, your second point.
So then if you could just review for the public the other ways that they can contact the city, right?
Mhm.
Facebook comments was just one way, and it was, yeah, it's kind of an unofficial channel. So if I'm a person and I have a question for the city, what are the various ways I can contact the city?
Well, certainly, phone, email, those are the two primary ways, of course. It's amazing how many written letters we still get to come to City Hall. People still like those. Those are the three main. But of course, our other social media as well. We still use X. We still have, Instagram, and those still accept comments. They're not used nearly as much as Facebook was. But there are lots of different avenues for people, and it's something that we can explore going forward, maybe on a regular basis, sort of promoting again to the public. Like, if you're looking to get a hold of us, here's how you do it. Just make it sort of our regular public education.
Yeah, certainly, what I've seen in my last 3 years, I see it from a different perspective, being here daily. There's way more going on than we really realize and appreciate sometimes. Um, I think it's very difficult when we basically have one person in communications. He works with the corporate team. He works with Mark, but I can tell you right now, he's working on stuff that's 6 months down the road right now. I walk by his office. His head's down every day. It's a difficult job because probably 75% or more of what he does, we don't see. We only see that piece that comes out at the end of the day. And we all know, research and actually, getting the facts and putting something together is pretty time consuming. I'm extremely impressed with how far we've come. I'm really impressed, with how Chris uses the team. I think our department heads are part of our communications at a level they've never been before. Certainly the support from City Hall. Chris and Mark probably speak a half a dozen times daily, on different issues. Yeah, it's one of those resource things, right? And I think one of the biggest problems too is what platform we're using. And nobody can answer that right now, I don't think, because it doesn't matter. I can talk to somebody every week and they'll say, well, I never saw that. Well, we got it. Well, I don't use that. I don't do that. I don't go into the city. I don't get the paper. Well, in other words, you don't communicate. There's no communication in your life. And those are the ones we'll still hear the negativity from because we're not doing enough to get to them. And there's more of them out there than you realize in this town, or maybe that's just an excuse for people. And Norma said it numerous times, it's the angry people sometimes we hear from most. And if they're not getting the response they want, well, they're not happy. And they'll go around until they try and get it. And quite frankly, I'm really impressed with our communications, with our administration. There is absolutely no spin at all. What they get is facts. And you talk about transparency, this council, from day one, transparency was a focus. Facts is transparency. And I think certainly Chris and Mark have held true to that, in everything that they've responded to. So, yeah, Councillor Statsky, then Councillor Bissett.
Yeah, and I certainly agree with keeping Facebook comments turned off. Nothing positive was coming from comments, and so why have them?
Yep.
The other thing, of course, that people know is that we're out in the community all the time, and people often come up and talk about issues. And so that's another way, of course, that they can contact their city council, and they do, which is great.
Councillor Bissett and Councillor Peabody.
Thank you. So further to what Councillor Peabody brought up about the public asking for a response from a specific person, the thing that we have to realize is that we often need that operational response, and not everybody knows that when they're submitting their email. So I other than like the sort of standard, we received it, we'll get back to you. I think that's appropriate. And then I think we make the decision, is it operational or is it the mayor? One or the other. Regional district is very, has really communicated to directors the importance of one voice, and particularly in a crisis. And the thing is, I mean, there's crises when there's fires and things like, or, natural disasters, but also when people are getting in touch with us, there's a lot of motivation behind that. So it's maybe a crisis to them. So again, that one voice is really important, and the appropriate voice. The other thing I wanted to bring up is we constantly hear it, as you mentioned, public hearings. Just if we could even expand the diameter of the area that we send a notice out to, that I think that would help, because sometimes it's within so many meters is the standard protocol, but if we expanded that, I think we'd help ourselves a little bit with that. They may, or again, that people are really hard to reach. You hear this, I mean, I've been involved in elections for other groups, and you just can't reach people. You drop something off at their house, but they don't look at it. Like truly, it can be very difficult. So it's just part of today's environment. But I do think the one voice, either operational or political, is critical. And I think other organizations are recognizing that too.
Thank you very much. Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. I just sent myself an email using the website for the first time, and it looks like we do have an automatic message already. It says, "Thank you for reaching out. We appreciate your message. Please know that your email will be shared to us with every member of council. If your inquiry is a general comment or suggestion, please know that it will be shared with the appropriate staff. For specific questions, a member of our team will respond to you usually within 48 hours. So it looks like we've covered that aspect. And as soon as you send a message on our website, it goes to another screen which has a very similar worded message. So I don't know if that needs to be edited or if we like it, but it seems like it covers the bases.
Thank you, Councillor Peabody. And yeah, what we're wanting is input, because I was thinking we might want to edit it just a little more based on the conversation, plus some conversations we had prior, but I just thought we'd have the conversation here first.
Yeah, certainly very timely discussion. Got a fall election coming up. As I said earlier, we're going to have a lot of new faces by the sounds of it on around the table on council. We have an excellent orientation that's been developed over the last number of years. It's obviously going to change a little bit this year, because just because of the fact that we've got a number of new people coming on with limited knowledge of what goes on. And I think that certainly this policy is important, that it's put into part of that orientation, so that and stated more than once. It's no different than, obviously the theme for the new council. What's your role? Role clarity, your governance, and this is operations. Keep it separate. I think this is one of those things as well that, if they hear it from day one, they understand the procedure and they understand the policy from day one, then they don't know any different moving forward. And, I think so it's a very good conversation. I think we all agree with that, there's a line it falls under, and it'll be designated in the policy. So it should be pretty straightforward going forward. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. On another topic, and this, I don't know, this might be a question more for CAO Furcho. Our 311 app is one of our communication tools, and we know that app has been having some glitches for sure in terms of the reports to bylaw. So just wonder if we could get an update on how that's going, and if it seems like the 311 app is not a reliable tool for us anymore. Do we have plans in the works for a new tool?
Do you use the 311? Right.
Yeah, if I may, I'll jump in here. Yeah, we are aware we're having some challenges with the 311. It is certainly still a useful and valuable tool, especially for public works, when it comes for like service requests and those types of things. But what we've really noticed is since we started with the 311, the company that has operated it has been changed hands 4 times. And we're finding that the quality of service, customer service that we're getting is diminished greatly. As an example, we've had text reminders for people for their garbage and recycling pickups. We've had a ticket in with the company since November, and still haven't had a response to get that fixed. And that's been a very important tool that people have really come to rely on and expect. So there is some frustration there for sure. At a high level, sort of internally, we're looking at other options. Bigger picture, there has been some discussion of creating some sort of system, I guess, that, with 311, like a phone, email, all would feed into one sort of central location that can then sort of through AI or virtual assistants kind of get pushed through to the departments and those types of things. But I think we're a long way off from that yet. But we have been starting to explore some other options. There are other tools available to us, but we're very, very early into that yet.
Yeah, thanks very much for your follow-up on that. And I definitely have heard that feedback in the community. And I enjoy the reminders about garbage and recycling. It was great to get those little text reminders. So I appreciate all the work. And yeah, we're not alone in having frustrations with service providers on those kind of technical issues. So thanks very much to everybody who's working on that. Just another item, I think we would all agree we live in an age of like information overload and that's I think why sometimes you have people now exiting social media because they're just like, you know what, it's information overload, there's a lot of negativity, like I'm just out. So that is a challenge for us. And one of the things we've had some discussions about are like in addition to our 2 e-newsletters, to also periodically maybe doing press releases that are kind of about a certain theme to summarize information for the community. So, if we've had 3 or 4 press releases related to our water system, that then maybe periodically we have one summary thematic release to the community, say, oh, just a reminder, we're doing the Gold Creek Dam, we're doing the UV chlorine disinfection, the bypass pipeline. And we have a number of areas, whether it's community safety or working with vulnerable population, where we could do those kind of summaries. So just for management's consideration, I don't know if that's something we can include in the plan or if that's a bit too granular, but I think that is just another way we can help people navigate this information overload that we're all dealing with. So just wanted to share that as a comment for consideration. And then as other folks have touched on, we're dealing with finite communication resources. So we need to make sure what we're doing is the most effective because, right, this is a limited resource we have. So we want to make the very best use of it. And so do you have any comments, Chris, on, like X, Twitter? I think the user numbers are pretty low. At what point do you say, is this social media channel, right, the best use of my time? And I could actually, so yeah, I don't know if you have any comments on that for the community.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Ray. Yeah, you bring up a good point. We do look at usage numbers and people who use all of these different channels that we have, and Twitter is definitely or X, whatever you want to call it, has certainly dwindled quite a bit. So we're always looking at these things and seeing what's the usage like, is there value, and, you know, as needed, we'll certainly look at abandoning those or trying something else if we're finding that's where people tend to be. So that's the ongoing challenge of communications with so many different avenues for people to get information. You know, you try to be everywhere, and you try to be in places where people are. And if you're in a spot where there's nobody there, nobody listening, there's no point in you know, pushing that any further. So it's something we're constantly watching. And, you know, we'll certainly change or abandon things as we need to. Yeah.
Anything further, Council? Mark, anything to wrap up?
So, thank you, council, for that input. So that's helpful. And maybe I'll just throw one more item out is when we do the planning and the reporting for this organization, like what we're going to do in the year ahead is all things we covered during budget. And then we have it built out in our business plan so people can see kind of what's the plan for the departments and how much it's going to cost. And that's our main tool for a central area for saying what we're going to do in the year ahead. We have our annual report that talks about the things that we did, how much we spent and all that. That's our reporting tool, but that comes out late in the year. And you know, I guess just in the vein of information overload, and it's true, like if you think of how busy people are and how much information there is to consume all the time and our limited resource, you know, one area that we did talk about a little bit this winter is you hear a lot of these year in review things that come out from different organizations. And although we provide that information, we don't do a formal one of those. And I just wonder, is that something that we should dedicate resources for, knowing it takes away from something else? Or is it just one of those things you see in the newspaper or whatever, and you go, oh, that's lovely. It's usually some self promo, don't care. Like, I just don't know like where you guys are at with something like that. It's yeah, I don't know if you have some ideas, Chris, but I just wondered, I just thought we should touch on too.
Yeah, I would say, you know, if there's some interest from council around the table, you know, within, you know, time and bandwidth and things. I mean, what's been happening the last number of years is, you know, I have been sort of preemptively preparing things for the mayor because inevitably we hear from the press sort of late December, you know, for something. So the information exists and we already have it. It's just a matter of do we want to take it and package it slightly different for the public, sort of under our own banner. It can be done. It's already being done. But again, it's up to council if that's something you want to explore.
One more thing too on that. So the way that we do it is kind of like Chris helps. The mayor is kind of crafts his, you know, review speech that goes out, and so we don't preempt it with a media release kind of thing. So that when the mayor speaks at an event, then that's covered, and then the kind of that information comes out. But it has, you know, some general interest in the impact. Whereas I just find sometimes those media releases are pretty flat. That's all I was trying to say.
Certainly, you know, Chris, like you're saying, the information generally exists. I'm astounded that in the age of information that is at your fingertips, that people don't go and try to find the information. If they can't get it like this and it comes up and it's not 2 sentences or 3 sentences, they're not reading beyond that. So, you know, and that's part of the issue now too, because I mean, back in the old days, you needed to find it. You went to a library, you did whatever you did. You researched something if you were curious about it. Today, that information is there right now. You just might have to go a few links and go a little further, but you know, certainly any city information, you could find it. Anything that any city business, you could find any information, anything that's been discussed on it. And for some reason, people are reluctant to, I guess, put in the work to get the results. Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, sort of back to where we started from. Good job on the communications plan in general. You know, we focused on that one aspect, which it would be great to see some work done on that. But the rest of the plan I thought was really well done. And in terms of keeping the press informed, there have been times when at least half of the townsmen is city news. So we know we're getting the message out that way as well. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you. I think a year-end highlight is a good idea because, and it's along those same lines as maybe periodic theme summaries. Um, Folks need to hear a message more than once to be able to hear it. I mean, that's the whole basis of advertising, right? Um, and I think to package things together to summarize what the city has done in the past year. And we know that visuals are important, right? That draws people in to then be able to process the information. I think that would be a worthwhile investment. And it's our job to tell our story of the city's challenges, but also the city's successes. And that's part of creating a sense of pride in our community that, wow, oh, geez, people may see the press releases, but they're busy and, it may not totally stick. But to have a year-end summary to say, wow, look at everything that has gone on, I think that can really foster that and nurture that sense of civic pride. So I do think that would be a valuable investment. And it does not have to be long. And again, we could link to existing press releases, right? Like there's a ton of work that's already been done. So I think there's a way we can do that as efficiently as possible. But really, because if we don't tell our story, then someone else will tell our story for us in a vacuum of information, which is, we're not in a vacuum, but in the absence of a story, someone else will make up a story. So let's tell our story with pride. And really, I think it's an opportunity to reinforce that with the community.
Thank you. Councilor Bissett.
I'm thinking, doesn't Tina do that, the annual report? And is that required also? And I mean, I think that's done.
Yeah, so the annual report is a requirement, Councilor Bissett, through the mayor, and it's just that it comes out in the spring versus everybody publishing something like just prior to New Year's Eve,
Sure.
and if we kept it fairly light, maybe that might be possible. But I think like the impactful weighted one, it really is good that we deliver through the mayor when he does an
Yes.
address. Like,
Yeah.
that to me, it's a good message for the community here from the mayor, and it's picked up by the media pretty good. But yeah, it's just that year in review thing. It's just been something I've thought about the last couple of years here, and some do and some don't. And is it something people read or not? Again, back into that information overload, because anything we do takes work. So I just want to have that conversation. That's all.
Councilor Stetzky.
Thank you, Mayor. So in any year-end review, I think it's important to also include the support that the city has given to various organizations through grants, both through our regular granting process, but also through council contingency, because that does show a lot of support, and also then lets the community know that there's lots of stuff going on in the city and that the city is supporting it.
Yeah, good comment. Real quick on that. I've got a presentation to the Rotary Club and Chamber mid-February, and I will be highlighting 2025 and what to look forward to in 2026. And we did that last year as well. I think last year Eno took the entire, kind of did a speech last year. They took the entire speech and published that. So, and we got pretty good feedback on that. So, yeah, I think going forward, that's, something we need to do at the end of every year for sure. There's so much positive stuff coming when you really look at it at the end of the day. When I'm going to be doing some of the accomplishments or achievements from 2025, and I've only got 20 minutes to speak. So I'm going, wow, I got to get into this other stuff. Plus I got to speak a little bit about budget, right? And I'm looking, I go, holy man, I could talk for 25 minutes, half an hour just on 2025. There's that much there, so to cut it down into probably 10 big accomplishments, and it's very easy to do. I mean, there was a lot of big accomplishments in 2025. 2026, as we look what's coming in, it's going to be better than 2025, and I believe it's going to carry through to 2027, and that'll break 2026. So I think in the next 3 years, so I think it is critical, pardon me, especially right now when things are starting to step up like that, that we get out in front of that because there's lots of really, really good news right now. Yeah. Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, since we're just spitballing ideas here, one of the terms that we use when we do our social media marketing in our stores, we want to keep things snackable. So you want people to kind of cruise through and just like, oh, that's interesting, and hopefully hit like and then cruise along. So with this year end report idea, what we could do to keep it interesting is almost give it a theme of like, I'm sure you've seen people share like their Spotify rap stories, where it's like, there's some music behind, there's some fun graphics, just some like interesting tidbits of information. That might get more community engagement than, a one-page media release or, something that has a whole lot of text, but just like little bullet points, keep it fun. That might be a lot more successful. And if they want more information, then we have the official year-end review.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We're certainly in the age of infographics, yeah. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick comment, one of the items is looking at alternative communication channels. And again, I know not everybody listens to local radio, but I listen to local radio in my vehicle. And, for example, great to hear the ad that's on right now about making reports to the RCMP, because then that data supports our advocacy efforts around resources. So I think, continued good use of radio, which we've been doing for a long time. And then I think there was some mention of considering ads at the movie theater. People do still go to movies. And again, that's another great place to share information. It's probably a little bit of a tangent from what we're talking about today, but in terms of Darren Brewer's work and all the great videos from Choose Cranbrook, again, it's just an opportunity to share those positive stories, because in the world today, we can use a little more positivity. So, and there's lots of positive stories to share from the city.
Thank you. Further? No wrap up? Well, thank you very much, Chris. Great report, good feedback, guys. That brings us to the end of the committee of the whole meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Councillor Blissett, Councillor Ray, all in favor, all opposed? That's carried. Thanks, guys. Good meeting.